Right, so I have a question. Sorry, I'm still talking about SOS stuff. So I have a question more for the EVPs because I know you guys will have more of a role in the SOS process. But in the spirit of transparency and being able to review the SOS process, what are your thoughts on releasing the reimbursement figures for SOS allocations?
Start down here.
Yeah. Can you repeat that last part? Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
What are your thoughts on releasing reimbursement figures for the SOS allocations?
That's definitely a conversation that we can have with our executive board and with the financial department and program board about releasing that. I know a lot of the times when we are speaking with organizations, they want to know where that money is going or why they've been denied allocations. So that's definitely something that we feel that transparency is in the best interest because we want to have that support and we want to be the #1 support for organizations.
I agree.
When you talk about SOF, I think that a lot of frustrations come first with the fact that students don't understand the overall process, and then second, that they're denied and they don't really understand why. And so before anything, the organizations need to be told first why they're not getting the funding, and we need to sit down and have a conversation and just try and see where we're not on the same page. Because if they're frustrated, it's for a reason, and that may be because they really need the funding, and we just don't understand that. So again, organizations first.
And to be a little bit more specific, I think that one thing that we need to do first is that we clarify that when you're applying for student organization funding, that is a public document when you submit that. That way, I think that there's going to be a lot less frustrations when the time comes that we unveil those reimbursement numbers, but right now it would be completely unfair to student organizations if we did it blindly without them.
To put it very plainly, yes, we support that. Yes, reimbursement figures should be released. I know I support that continuing on this current campaign, and Zach actively supports that in his current role now. So we are entirely in favor of the students and the population of Marquette, understanding where this money is being allocated and by what means it is being reimbursed and what organizations are utilizing the funds.
Yeah, just to add something, Rob, it's all right. You were done. You didn't want to hear what I had to say, but one of the things that we asked through the ad hoc committee, we sent out a survey to all student organizations, and we got about 45 responses from them. And we said, how do you feel about this information being public? Not surprisingly, most organizations said, don't make it public. And that's simply because I'm not entirely sure that they understood what that might entail. That doesn't mean that I don't still support it. During this past year on the executive board, I did argue that we should be releasing these numbers to student media. I think I was the only voice that was supportive of that in our current conversations. So just throw that out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, please come on up.
Hello, so as a student at Marquette, I've had some fabulous professors, but as a standing, I've experienced a little trouble in terms of tracking my academic progress in class. And I feel this comes down to the inadequate use of D2L, check mark, that sort of thing in the classroom. Now, it's certainly not reserved to older professors, though I think that sometimes they are older not. But, I mean, sometimes we don't get grades posted very frequently. Sometimes the midterms aren't based on anything more than one test or one paper or something like that. And that can be very frustrating for a student because you're blind when you're going through, and you really have no clue how you're standing in the class in the end. And I suppose the question would be is, do you feel that this is an issue? And if you do, as an elected official, what would you do to combat this problem?
We'll be starting off with everyone else.
So I think that there's definitely parts of that are issues. Professors, I never had a professor who didn't give a grade back to me. Know that that's a concern across some of the constituents that we've talked to. So that's a big problem because I think a lot of it is on a student as well as the professor, where I get a grade back and I actually jot it down separately just so that when I log in at the end of the year, make sure that my grade reflects what they're doing. So there's a lot more that students need to do on their end, but I think that having just reinforcement to faculty members saying, here's D2L, it's meant to be a tool for you to engage with your students. Use it, and please use it as much as you can. It's hard to enforce it. It's hard to get in the classroom and tell a professor you have to do this, you have to do that. But I think that reminding them that it is there to benefit the students is a great way to start.
I think something also to go into is just to understand why they're not using it, and to kind of clarify if there are, if there's needed workshops, because there are workshops when it was set up and throughout the time at Marquette of professors, but understanding what's lacking, why are you not using it, and is there a way to make it better? Because it is a great tool and it should be used, so.
Okay, thank you. Johnny?
Sure. Okay, so we would encourage professors and through the Office of the Provost to seek out and enact D2L training for professors. Obviously, if a professor is entirely lacking in their D2L performances and not updating grades, that's entirely unacceptable. But I think we would also encourage students to really take ownership of their education, and if they're having issues in a course, seek out their professor themselves. I entirely believe that we would do our best to serve through our capacity to aid students in their need, and obviously if a teacher is inadequate, then that's unacceptable. But also, it is your individual education, and I think that needs to be something to take ownership of, and yes.
Any of that?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. And down here.
So from day one, Natalie and I have been advocating that it's time for the provost office to mandate that, one, either professors are using the D2L gradebook, or two, returning back graded assessments within 1 week of grading them. Students pay $40,000 a year to be here, and they care about their grades, and they want to be able to track that. They need to have that option. And one of the things through the academics committee discovered through discussions with the administration is that you can actually link the gradebook on D2L to Checkmark. I'm not quite sure exactly why that hasn't happened now, if there's a financial reason. I think it's an obligation of the university to do that to help students, but if they're concerned about that, I wouldn't say we would fund all of it, but certainly we could look into investing a portion of the reserve fund to help offset those costs so that we can ensure sustainability on both sides financially. But this is, I think it's a serious issue, and that students need to have that opportunity to engage their professors outside of office hours and looking at their grades and calculating that.
Yeah, and definitely when we've mentioned this, going around to student organizations, this is something that we've seen across the board that students want to support when it comes to linking Checkmark to D2L and professors being required by administration to upload grades.